Marge sat at a small table, looking out the window and wringing her hands. Her eyes were wet, not yet full of tears, but already on the verge. However, when she heard me enter, the first tear rolled down her cheek. "Charlie, baby, we need to talk." This phrase never boded well for a happy conversation. Everyone, man or woman, married or single, knows this. I knew this. I knew it better than anyone else. Sitting down on the chair next to her, I asked, "What's the matter, my love?" She swallowed, momentarily speechless. Charlie, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to tell you this. It hurt her so much to say this. I knew this a long time ago. But now she was confessing to me, and I was letting go of her pain. "Marge, I love you. Whatever it is, we will get through it." My wife sobbed, one single sob, and said, "Baby, please, I don't know if we can. God, Charlie, I love you so much, but oh God, Charlie, I cheated on you." Her hand covered her mouth as the tears began to flow in earnest. "What?" Marge nodded, unable to say a word at first. Her mouth opened and closed several times. Then she said, "I'm so sorry, Charlie. I took a deep breath and let it out. "Tell me what happened, Marge." "Why? Who?" "Milt. It was Milt." She sniffled and I handed her a napkin. You were so angry after we quarreled. I can't even remember what we fought about. I mean, a few months ago. I got angry, went to the bar and got drunk, and Milt? Your ex Milt?" I raised my voice slightly, giving it an angry tone. She wailed, "I'm so sorry. Was it only once?" She shook her head decisively. "No, it wasn't like that. Charlie, I swear I didn't want this to happen one day, but I was drunk and angry, and I don't even remember most of it. And while he took pictures, the ones where you can see the wedding ring on my finger and..." She choked. "He told me that he would show you photographs, if I refused to continue." I knew the answer, but I had to ask. "How long?" Marge looked down at her hands, afraid of the rage in my eyes. "Since then, a couple of times a week while you were at work, he came and waved the photographs, told me that he would send them to you. His face was not on them and..." Marge looked up. "Please, baby, please. I didn't want to do this, I swear. But I can't lose you. I'm really sorry." A tear rolled down my face. It was painful to listen to her confession, even more painful to see her like this. There was an angry note in my voice. "You'll never do that again, Marge." "Never. I can forgive the mistake you made this time. And I understand why you didn't tell me, but it hurts me that you..." I put my hand on hers. "We'll figure it out. I love you, Marge. I will always love you. Just never again, okay?" The expression on her face was indescribable. Surprise, amazement, joy, love, hope. Everything was mixed in one expression. "Are you... really, Charlie? Will you forgive me?" I nodded solemnly. She limped out of her chair and sat on my lap, sobbing. I led my fragile, tired love to the small bed and pulled her into my arms. Marge cried herself to sleep, tears of sadness and relief mixing together and falling onto my chest. She fell asleep within a few minutes. I brushed a silver strand from her face and gently kissed her forehead. Then, slipping out of bed, I watched my wife of over 50 years sleep. Marge's small room at the Memory Care Center was filled with mementos of our life together. Photos of our children and grandchildren, our friends, wedding photos and little trinkets adorned the shelves and walls. On the table stood a vase, once broken, but now restored. Cracks in the vase were filled with gold, in some cases replacing small pieces that had been lost. When Marge first told me about her infidelity and Milt's blackmail, I took this vase, a gift from her beloved grandmother, who died shortly after we were married, and threw the vase against the wall, breaking it to pieces. I then ran out of the house, afraid that I would turn my anger on Marge. I was an angry and arrogant young man, so sure there was something more behind her infidelity, Sure, she did it all of her own free will. I was ready to end our marriage and told myself that it was all her doing. But the fight that made her leave the night she cheated was over nothing. My anger, the demon that appeared at any moment, was something she lived with for a long time, and eventually I took her too far, pushed her into the arms of a predator. Now I know it. I couldn't accept it at the time, so I assumed she was a willing participant. Marge could be very prickly. I was angry, but she also pushed my buttons when she felt insecure. She never went so far as to cheat, but she was beautiful, and when she wanted to piss me off, she was flirtatious. It wasn't until I ran into Joe, a friend I worked with in construction, that Sandy, his wife, told me that Marge wasn't the only woman Milt had seduced. He was a little shit, handsome and charming in an oily way. He was always ready to buy a lady a drink. As it turned out, he was always ready to slip something into the drink. He was shit when he and Marge were together, but he got worse over the years. I didn't kill him. Almost. His survival was not easy, but he limped for the rest of his life, and those sweet, boyish features were shattered. The bastard could give Quasimodo his escape for his money. And of course, I didn't do anything at all. While Milt was broken and nearly bleeding out in the alley, I was playing poker at Joe's with him and 3 other good guys, and his wife was kind enough to keep the beer flowing. This was before DNA and forensics and all that other acronym bullshit, so it was our word against his. He left town about a year later. I hope he got hit by a bus somewhere in there. Marge stirred in her sleep, quietly muttering something incomprehensible. Today was not her best morning. The best days were the ones when she not only recognized me, but knew where she was now and knew why she was there. Such days became fewer and fewer. The children helped me take her to the center after losing her memory. I was dozing, and Marge left the house. She was gone for several hours before the people living in our old apartment called me to tell me that she was knocking on the door and demanding to be let in. After Milt, things went as normal in our marriage for a while. I knew she had been deceived and abused. I knew I was being an ass, that I needed to get my anger under control. I knew that we loved each other. But knowing is one thing, and doing is quite another. Translating this knowledge into self-improvement, forgiveness, and rebuilding trust was the hardest thing we have ever done. Marge and I spent a lot of time with our pastor, our friends, and our family, trying to get back to something resembling the marriage we had before. In the end, we made it through. There were mutual accusations, fear, and anger, but there was always love. Marge was a new woman. Coming into contact with real evil made her realize how petty she can be sometimes. My last truly cruel act was against Milt, and when I realized how much I had contributed to the likely breakdown of my marriage, I tried my best to control my rage. I wasn't perfect, and neither was she, but we both worked on ourselves and our marriage. The broken vase went into a box in the closet. I thought it was beyond repair, but Marge couldn't part with it. It wasn't until we visited an art museum while Marge was pregnant with our first child that I learned a way to put it all together. The museum was hosting an exhibit on a Japanese art form called kintsugi, which used precious metals to repair broken objects, restoring them while also highlighting the cracks and flaws that appeared when they broke. The philosophy behind it was called wabi-sabi, accepting imperfections as their own part of something, a sign of the item's history. For our anniversary that year, I gave Marge a refurbished vase with gold stitching. She took my hand with tears in her eyes and whispered, "This is us." I just nodded and kissed her. We will never be who we were before, but we can be whole. Maybe we could be beautiful. I walked over to her bed and stroked her hair. She was so peaceful as she slept. There was no tension or worry on her face that I saw too often these days. She had been in the hospital for the better part of a year, and I had heard her confess many times. The first time she relieved that memory was the worst, both because it was such a searing pain and because I should not have been the person I had become over the years. She expected to see an angry young man, and when she did not find him, she became even more confused and upset. This was wrong. I was wrong. Next time I tried to be him, the angry young man. This was even worse. She was just as upset as she was when I ran away almost 50 years ago, so upset that she had to be sedated. In the end, it was a delicate balancing act. I have to be angry enough to be recognized, but not so angry that I hurt her more. I continued to try to hone my performance to be as gentle as possible, while still giving her what she needed to feel like she was truly confessing and repenting. I couldn't give any hint of what I knew because that also pissed her off. It still hurts. It was the worst time of our lives, and even if we came out of it unscathed, it was painful to relive it. This pain began to dull as I went through it again and again, but it never completely went away. I tried to think of it as a blessing. It was easier for me to play my role. But my pain was only a second compared to watching hers, and I needed to do everything I could to ease it. The best days, the ones when she was fully conscious, came less and less often. But we had many good days, those when, in her memory, we were newlyweds, or when she remembered our children and wanted to reminisce. The ones where she mostly understood, where she was, the Marge I knew. We kept a lid on the days when she was completely incoherent, when her eyes were dull with confusion or wide with fear. I loved her, this woman who had hurt me and whom I had hurt. The woman who made me a father, who made me a better person, who gave me her life and restored herself to me. I've been an angry, betrayed husband hundreds of times. I would play this painful role 1,000 more times if it meant I could have a few more good days with her, if I could make her bad days less painful until she was gone. She was a beautiful soul, my Marge, not a broken thing that can be thrown away. Yes, our history left its mark, and her psyche was broken, fragments of memories that needed to be pieced together. I try to be the gold for her that fills the cracks to make her whole. There is a love of our lives between us. I'm willing to take care of it and fix it for as long as possible. How can I do otherwise?